Labour versus Conservative. Who is best? With Labour pledging to build 1.5 million homes in the next Parliament, will this be good for property developers or a sting in the tail? That's the topic here on Property Answers. And I'm joined by John and Ranjan. You probably have seen them on Property Elevator on Sky TV. And they're here with us today. How are you guys?
Absolutely great.
Absolutely great.
Not sure whether I'm excited about any government coming in.
Well, I've been canvassing for the last week or so, and it's tough work out there for the Conservatives, that's for sure.
We'll give that one a go in a moment.
Yeah.
So don't forget to like and subscribe this video, and also click that bell as well so you can be notified of all of our other videos coming up. So here we go, Labour versus Conservatives. Who would like to start this one?
Go on then.
Go on then, John.
Well, a lot of people think that the Conservatives haven't done a lot or very much for housing over the past 14 years. That is absolutely not true. Homes England, which is the government property bank, has lent billions of pounds to property developers like me. It's lent me 20 odd million, which I've paid back, which is hopefully everyone's pleased about, especially me. And it's about to lend in excess of 20 million on a cladding scheme that I'm potentially going to be involved in.
Okay.
So you can see that demonstrates to me that this government have done everything they possibly can, even selling properties in Scotland and England to councils who have got a 40% grant from, guess who? The government at the moment. So they are doing everything they can to support and help the housing crisis there is. Now, whether Labour will do more, I'll be, in the end, very surprised.
Okay.
I think the Conservatives have done a lot for housing supply. I think there are a couple of things. I mean, it's been very difficult because whatever they've done has been woefully inadequate.
I think that's a bit harsh.
But it's been inadequate because of the way the demographics have moved away. I mean, of course, there's immigration, but there's also the issue of trends in people marrying later, more single households, more split-ups and the like. So there's more need for households. And that need has accelerated way beyond the housing supply provision. And I think with the Conservatives have done a good job, with brownfield in particular, with permitted development rights and all the rest of it. But when it comes to releasing new land, you come up with the backbenchers in the Shire counties and the NIMBYism and not in my backyard, which is a bit of a hamper because less than 10% of the UK is actually built on.
Oh, wow. Far less than 10%. And interestingly, the business about these MPs is that because they're scared of losing votes if they allow or support a large development in their association area, in their area. But of course, if you go up north, and I know you've never been up north. Now up north,
I've been to Hendon.
Yeah, well, further north, keep going up the A1 or the M1, past the Watford Gap, sort out your nosebleed, and then carry on. And you'll find that there is lots of spare land, and there is no housing crisis really up north. It's a southern problem, and this is what people don't understand. And if you live up north, you think, well, what's the problem? We don't have a rental problem. We don't have a housing problem, and house prices on the whole are lower. So you have to somehow manage to attract people to live up north, and the only way you do that is by tax incentives and by getting companies to move up north as well, and to get grants to allow housing to happen up north. So these house builders will move up north more so and build up north.
That's a whole new topic, I think.
Put it down. We'll do that, and it's series three.
No, seriously. I mean, I've thought about this long and hard.
Really? It doesn't seem to have done.
I mean, because many countries where you can travel an hour on a train and really come from quite far in this nation. But what prohibits that is the high cost of public transport. In countries where public transport is low, people on relatively ordinary average wage jobs will commute an hour and come 100 miles or so because the train service is good and it's cheap. So, you can get from Peterborough to London in an hour, but you need to earn 70 grand a year to do it.
Right.
Now, if you could do that commute, on 30 grand a year, then more people will live further out, and you'll get that distribution happen anyway.
That you do make a point there. I
I'll
have
try
to
now,
concede that you've made a good point there. But that's advocating really the government, the new government, to take over the trains again, of course, by the sound of things. That's what you're saying.
Well, I was delayed here today, so I think that might be a good idea. But that's another episode.
Yeah, we've been hanging around waiting for them, haven't we?
But I think the interesting thing that we talked about the backbench thing.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that the Conservatives did was they abandoned having local authority new housing targets, which I thought was exceptionally odd. Now, Labour want to bring that back. And I think they abandoned it because they didn't want, the shire seats having targets and forcing them to build on land.
I think it was all to do with the election coming up, without question, Ranjan. But what I would say is when Labour say they want to build, was it
1.5 million?
1.5 million houses. They're talking about social housing. They're not talking about the houses you live in, I live in. They're talking about, all the viewers live in. They're talking about social housing. They don't care too much about home ownership. Home ownership to a socialist is like a swear word. So that's where you've got to appreciate. Nigel Farage said we need one house built every 2 minutes.
Nigel's not in your party yet.
He's not yet, no.
Not yet.
Which is interesting. The other issue the house builders are going to have is much higher costs in building because at the moment the 106 contributions, things like that, one in social housing contributions, it's over 1,000 square metres at the moment. 30%, normally 30% of the houses over 1,000 square metres have to be social houses. Well, you watch this space because under Labour, it's going to be more like 1 in 3 houses, something like that, which is what it was 20 odd years ago with them. So I would be very, very, if I was a house builder, I would be extremely concerned.
So do you think 1.5 million is a suitable target for them then?
Well,
is it realistic?
Well, we need to build 500 houses a year. We're building 232,000. We need to build a minimum of 500,000, but in the right places.
Yeah, that's correct.
And social housing in this country they will argue that we haven't built enough social houses. Well, of course, the truth is we haven't built enough houses in total. But if you've got 700,000 people coming into the country every year, size of Manchester, how can you do it? It's not possible.
There is a skills shortage issue and all of that in delivering a house building program of that kind. But at the end of the day, what has happened in the last 30 years is there's been virtually no social house building funded and instigated by the state, not by our Section 106 agreements, but it's been nothing on the scale that it was 30 years ago.
Got a lot of housing associations.
No, what I'm saying is, if they want social housing, they have to fund it and build it. If they want to impose Section 106 tax on us doing it, and we don't feel it's worth taking the risk to do it, then we simply won't do it.
No.
And that is the balancing act that they have got to...
But they will fund more housing associations. That's what they'll do.
Right.
That's how they'll fund more councils in terms of funding new homes, which this government have allowed. Under previous Conservative governments, councils have not been allowed to build their own homes again, but under this government they have. And they will push hard the social housing via the housing associations. The gravy train will continue for all those directors of housing associations that aren't very good at what they do but get paid a fortune.
Yeah.
One thing that I am very worried about in terms of Section 106, which is the social housing provision, is the effect it has on smaller developers, on smaller schemes. Because there is an argument to say that if you are a big house builder and you're constructing 300 units, then the site can take a little bit
and
more.
They're professionals, let's be honest. They're top 10 house builders.
Yes.
They're very slick, they're very organised, They know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly, and they can make it work a little bit better. But the thing is with the small sites, it's not worth Berkeley Homes getting out of bed to do 9 flats somewhere.
No.
Whereas a small developer who's watching this channel, those are bread and butter stock for those guys. Yeah. And you need to encourage those guys as well. And that's where I think Labour will fail.
They won't do.
They will let the big guys do it, but the little guys who are doing... And these are valuable schemes, because otherwise these small schemes don't get done. I mean, these schemes, can contribute at least half of the housing supply, as well as the big ones. But if they are not viable...
Not being funny, Ranjan, the top 10 house builders build 67% of houses in the UK at the moment. Now, this government have tried to change that to allow smaller house builders, by supporting them via Homes England, the government bank and so on, to build more houses. The issue they have going forward, you're absolutely right, is that under Labour, they're not going to get a look in my view.
I mean, in terms of small sites, I mean, I have some data for this. I mean, the people like councils like Islington, Camden, and also Hackney have introduced something called a small sites contribution. So if you were making one dwelling into 4, you're making 4 flats out of one, you'd pay £50,000 to the council as a tax for them to do up their town hall or whatever, per extra dwelling you create. So what that meant is, if I'm taking a large house and converting it into 4 flats, I pay £150,000 to the council. Now, the proof of those becoming unviable is that if I go back to 2006 and look at the planning website, I will see more planning applications for flat conversions in Islington in 1 month than you get in a whole year now.
It's interesting.
So that
that's
means,
a very interesting fact.
And Berkeley Homes aren't doing those. No. One large house, it's grotty, it doesn't make sense as it is, it's not really a family home anymore. The demographics of the area are not so family orientated anymore. It's in a brownfield site. That's where people want to live as well. Split them up and allow small developers to do that. There'll be nothing in Labour's manifesto to do that.
They've already said that under a new Labour government, they will not allow any negotiation on the 106 contributions for social housing. So at the moment, if you can prove you're making less than 20%, then you can negotiate the amount of social housing you're going to provide down. It could be what's called a commuted payment off-site, so you give them a cheque off-site. There have been no negotiation on that going forward whatsoever. So that tells you how tough they're going to be. I've got a situation at the moment, and there's a bit of a tip for some of the viewers. If you've got a social housing requirement, a 106 social housing requirement that's over 5 years old, you can go back and renegotiate it down. And that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment. I'm getting a 2/3 off one that we bought a site, part finished. The 106 was negotiated 5 years ago now, so we're going back to reduce it. You won't be able to do that under Labour.
But when I think John hasn't really worded it that well.
Oh, thank you.
No. What I mean is, there is a reason to go back after 5 years. It's not just a loophole or something.
Well,
because costs have gone up.
Absolutely.
From 5 years ago.
So
you're going back to them, not because, it's a loophole and you can do it.
No.
It doesn't make sense based on 5 years ago figures.
I've got to prove that it doesn't.
You can get qualified quantity surveyors, which you have to do. You have to get, professional reports to back it up, to demonstrate that, the basis on which we were going ahead 5 years ago is not viable today. And that's the basis of your appeal.
And I inherited the problem,
Okay.
And then there's the use it or lose it. Provisions they're thinking about bringing in. I mean,
forcing you to get on with the development quicker.
I think that's a misunderstanding of how the industry works.
They're clueless. They're Labour. They're clueless.
If you've got a pipeline of projects, you can't start them all. And I've got a few projects going on. I can't have everyone doing all of them at the same time. You've got to have a pipeline.
Good if you got up earlier, to be fair.
For people to go from one project to the other.
He doesn't
and all the rest of it.
Doesn't have to.
Now,
the bigger, when he wants.
Now, I'm a small developer. The bigger developers have this on a much larger scale. It's not possible for them to build all their sites out.
I agree. They're talking about a 1 year limit. Well, I mean, it's just unrealistic.
It's unrealistic.
And that's just naivety.
And they don't understand. I mean, it takes me a little bit of time to, as I said, my developments are relatively small, but it takes a certain amount of time to mobilise a site.
Takes you lunchtime to get going, doesn't it?
and get things ready to start works. On larger sites, those issues and project management issues,
just
project
magnified.
startup, they're magnified, yes, yeah.
Well, there you go. And what a long video that was as well. We can have these two talking for hours about this, couldn't we? But do share your comments below on this channel as well. Don't forget to click that bell because we are now at 70,000 subscribers here on Succeed in Property, and you can get first notification of all of our new videos. But right now, that's goodbye from Ranjan and John and myself here at Property Answers, and more videos will be coming very soon.